President Donald Trump said he expects to meet Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado. Delcy Rodriguez rejected Trump's claim of U.S. control, insisting Venezuela remains sovereign. According to Ukrainian officials, Russian drone strikes have hit Kyiv just before midnight of Friday, killing 4 people, including an emergency medic, and injuring at least 19, with 14 hospitalized. Military administration head reports a building and critical infrastructure were damaged as well. U.S. Assistant Secretary for East Asia Michael DeSombre said, including a 25% penalty over India's Russian oil purchases. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance urged Europe to take Donald Trump seriously on Greenland after Washington floated buying the Danish territory and did not rule out military action to secure it. Israeli strikes killed at least 13 Palestinians across the Gaza Strip on Thursday after the Israeli military said it targeted the site following a failed rocket launch, with medics reporting that 4 people, including children, were killed in a 10th strike in Khan Yunis, while Hamas claims more than 1,100 Israeli ceasefire violations since October. South Korean President Lee Jae-myung will visit Japan Tuesday to meet Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi in Nara. The summit will include discussions and a dinner on regional and global issues. U.S. President Donald Trump said he held a great meeting with Intel CEO Lip Bhutan, calling him very successful and praising the U.S. government's 10% stake in the chip maker. Intel shares jumped in, extending trading up about 75% since the CHIPS Act investment. All right, viewers, let's start with the top focus now on this bulletin. A massive Russian overnight attack hit Kyiv, damaging 20 residential buildings and even hitting the Qatar embassy. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky confirmed 4 people were killed in the capital and at least 19 others were injured. Kyiv says Russia launched 36 missiles and 242 drones in the strike. Ukrainian officials also say the attack took place close to the European Union borders and called it a grave threat to European security. Ukrainian President Zelensky has called for a clear reaction from the world, especially the United States, saying Russia must face consequences for focusing on destruction instead of diplomacy. Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha says Kyiv is briefing the US and European partners on the technical details of the missile strike. On the other hand, Russia's defense ministry says it targeted strategic sites using its new hypersonic missiles, along with several others missiles and drones. All right, joining me in this discussion is Julia Kazadobina, who's a senior fellow and Ukrainian PRISM. She joins us from Poland. Thank you very much for joining me in this discussion. We appreciate you giving us your time. Let me begin with my first question to you. What do you think is the way forward for the Russia-Ukraine war? Can the peace dialogue that's under works reach a conclusion anytime soon, or will there be a stalemate for a longer time?
Well, I think it's actually a mistake to call it a peace process because so far there's no negotiations between Russia and Ukraine, and Russia continues manipulating the process, claiming that it wants peace, and at the same time continuing attacks like the one that they did today. And you emphasize in your reporting, you emphasize that 20 buildings were damaged and that the Qatari embassy was damaged. But actually, the situation in Kyiv is approaching what I would call a humanitarian catastrophe, because Kyiv, where they will be in warm, they should be moving there. And Kyiv is a city of 5 million people. So talking about peace, Andrew, several times before during the Minsk process, during the initial stage of the war that last ended to negotiate and to force Ukraine into concessions every time there were talks, and they put pressure on Ukraine by attacking Ukrainian troops, but at the same time and claiming that they were not even a party to the conflict. So this time they're playing the same game. So they attack Ukraine, but at the same time they claim that it's actually Russia that is threatened. So I don't see peace, like when we talk about peace, not capitulation, I don't see peace coming anytime soon. And I don't see capitulation either, because Ukrainians understand that this is a life-threatening, that it's a life and death situation for them. If Russia because occupies Ukraine, then we know what's happening in the occupied territories. We know what happened in Bucha. We know what's happening currently in the occupied territories in Kherson Oblast, in Zaporizhia Oblast. So I don't think Ukraine is going to capitulate.
Julia, but why do you think it was the Qatar embassy that was targeted in the recent attack?
I think a possibility is that Qatar is helping Ukraine in returning Ukrainian children from Russia. One of the issues in this war is that Russia steals Ukrainian children. So those who are currently in the occupied territories, and those who were in orphanages in the occupied territories, and those who are in the families in the occupied territories. Russia basically takes these children and moves them to Russia, and changes their documents, changes their names, gives them to adoption to Russian families. And Qatar has been helping Ukraine and facilitating talks to return those children to Ukraine. And so I think also Qatar has been helping in prisoner exchanges. So this could be one of the reasons, of course, but that's what I would think, why Qatar could be targeted.
Sure. Well, thanks for that, Julia, but do continue to stay on with me as we proceed. Viewers, let's also tell you that tensions are rising in Minneapolis in the US now, after a 37-year-old mother was fatally shot by an ICE officer during a federal operation. State investigators say they were shut out of the probe, while federal officials defend the officer's actions, calling it self-defense. Protests have erupted across the city, with hundreds taking to the streets demanding justice. Let's in fact listen in to what some of the protesters are saying.
Honestly, it was disgusting. It makes me ashamed to be part of this country and a part of, the problem here. And so it just made me upset. And these are local families. They're just local people. They're our neighbors. They're our neighborhoods. And it doesn't feel right for ICE to be out here. They shouldn't be here.
Yeah, this shouldn't be happening. She's an innocent woman that just simply was in the wrong place at the wrong time and murdered.
Absolutely and completely lied about it. And this situation is absolutely and totally outrageous, because the federal government said that there was some sort of a riot, and that this lady was trying to ram into the law enforcement officers. And then later, when videos shot by people from different angles came out, it became absolutely clear that the federal government is lying, that the woman was not trying to attack police officers, that she was actually trying to leave and to drive away, and there was absolutely no reason to shoot at her at such a close range. She was not a threat. She was leaving. So I would not really define this in terms of race. I would rather define this in terms of absolute disregard for the rule of law in the United States by this agency that has been given absolutely extraordinary powers recently.
Yeah, and when such cases involve the use or the deployment of both federal and state officers, why do you think the state in this case was denied evidence to prosecute?
From what I understand, the state is headed by a Democratic governor, and the Republicans or MAGA Republicans are now in power in Washington, and so this is becoming a politically motivated dispute rather than a dispute about the rule of law and a dispute about the need to actually persecute the law enforcement officer who is clearly in violation in this case. So it's just becomes Republicans again.
The war and $10 million for demining and clearing of unexploded ordnance. However, US would also provide $20 million for initiatives that will help Cambodia and Thailand combat scam operations and drug trafficking and other programs. And our request callings Chong Yu Keat, who is a foreign affairs, security and strategy analyst from University of Malaya in Kuala Lumpur, to join me in this discussion. Thanks, Collins, for joining me. It's good to see you. Collins, what's in it for the US? Why does Trump want to help these two countries when clearly, like we mentioned in our report, US has cut back its assistance and funds to some other nations?
Well, the US is heavily invested in this part of the world. I think conflict also is to anchor both Cambodia and Thailand inside this framework of a US-led order. We have seen how China is now trying to exploit the gap, trying to play a greater role here in the dispute. So, of course, Washington will try to continue the momentum of offering mediation, rules and this framework of security architecture and crisis management within the US-led order, and also as a powerful message to ASEAN that it's no longer a passive actor, it's no longer a passive power, and of course to let Beijing to continue to exploit ASEAN. So now it is shaping, Washington under Trump is also shaping this strategic terrain and framework, and that of course also this is something that is close also to President Trump's heart, having invested quite a lot since last year, and I think I foresee that it will continue to be so.
All right, and do you think the border question will be resolved with further dialogue?
Yeah, as I've stated, it is a long-lasting issue, and it is a complex issue with historical connotation. I don't foresee, a very fast timeline of resolvement in terms of the border issues. What we can see here is the moves to prevent escalations.
Kurdish fighters in 2 districts of Aleppo will be moved to northeastern Syria. Syrian army surrounded the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces in the districts of Ashrafiyeh and Sheikh Maqsood. A statement from Aleppo's media office said the fighters and their light weapons will go east of the Euphrates River in the next few hours. Syria's defense ministry announced a ceasefire after days of fighting and gave the Kurds a deadline to leave these areas. US envoy Tom Barrack welcomed the ceasefire, saying it helped thousands of civilians who had to flee. He thanked the Syrian government, the STF, local authorities,
Assad to reconsolidate urban control without urban warfare, and preventing this, mass civilian casualties and the possible waves of refugees, which will also have these destabilizing effects on Europe. And but of course, I think most importantly, you also preserve the autonomy for the Kurdish people, the Kurdish autonomy, without outright forcing independence. So this will keep Iran, Turkey, and Russia from reacting violently or for having this pretext to intervene even to greater effect. So this is a strategic move. It's not a show of weakness, but it remains to be seen. It's still volatile, and let's see for the next couple of days now. But so far the move has been strategic for all sides.
And how do you think will the movement of troops be done? Do you think it will be a smooth transfer, or there are going to be some incidents likely when this happens?
We will foresee, of course, some sporadic possible incidents, but I don't think that it will create these huge implications. Of course, the US has welcomed the ceasefire. We have seen days of clashes now, and for these Kurdish fighters to be sent to the Kurdish region, I think it will at least hopefully present this immediate factor of trust building processes, and of course also in terms of instilling confidence and calm and trust, and hopefully that will stand. But we might also see some intent, some efforts to destabilize the whole arrangement. So, but then again, as long as there's this support from the US in this movement, and of course also to welcome the ceasefire, there is a positive move, at least for the days and weeks ahead.
Yes, indeed. Well, thanks, Collins, for joining me for now in this discussion. It was a pleasure to speak with you. Moving ahead, viewers, let's track some more news that's now coming in. Now, Syria's President Ahmed al-Shara has met European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen in Damascus, marking the highest level European Union visit since Bashar al-Assad was ousted. Von der Leyen is visiting alongside European Council President Antonio Costa as Syria struggles to chart a new path after years of civil war. The visit follows deadly clashes between government forces and Kurdish fighters in the northern city of Aleppo. The European Union says it will support a peaceful and inclusive Syrian-led transition. Brussels has already pledged around $2.7 billion in aid for Syria for 2026. All right, let's now give you some tech news. Now, Elon Musk's artificial intelligence startup XAI has reported a net loss of $1.46 billion for the September quarter as compared with the loss of $1 billion in the previous 3 months. The revenue has nearly doubled sequentially to $107 million in the period of September 30, 2025. The AI startup has also spent $7.8 billion in cash in the first 9 months of the year, as the startups in the AI space typically burn through huge amounts of cash, with billions poured into acquiring pricey advanced data center hardware and attracting top generative AI researchers. Meanwhile, XAI has said that it raised $20 billion in an upsized Series E funding round, exceeding its $15 billion target as it ramps up development of new AI models and computing infrastructure.